Okay, so in today's video, we will try to understand what is promise in JavaScript. Okay, so basically, if we see as a introductory part, here we will read these points and we will try to understand this practically. So it is JavaScript is a single threaded programming language where code gets executed sequentially, synchronously. Okay, line by line execution. One line will complete their execution, then only it will go for the next line execution. So this is called sequential execution. However, there are certain scenarios where we want our code to be executed asynchronously in the sense that if a particular line is taking time in their execution, in that case that line will be skipped for few minutes, for few time, and then another line will be executed. This is called asynchronous execution. Okay, so in JavaScript, if we have to achieve the asynchronous execution, then typically we handle it either by promise or observable. Okay, promise is actually native to the JavaScript in the sense we don't have to import it from anywhere. You just you will be able to create the object, or you will be able to consume the already existing promise software. This is how basically we can make use of promise. However, if we want to go with the observable, in that case, this observable is not native to the JavaScript. It is available in RxJS library. So of course, you might have understood that we will be required to install the RxJS first, and then we will be consuming this observable from that RxJS library. Okay. So let's go and try to understand it practically, that what is the synchronous execution and what is asynchronous execution. I already have created this file, promise-demo.js. This is just a name of the file. I will write few line of code here. I will say maybe a const a equal to 10, then const b equal to 20, b equal to a plus b. And then simply here I will log console.log, and then I will say C. Okay, so just trying to print the value, I will save, and then I will run the code. In order to run the JS file, we simply have to say node and then name of the file. Just write the few initials of the file name and then press tab. It will auto complete. So this node will only work when you have Node.js installed in your machine. Okay, if I hit enter, you can see we are getting 30. So basically what happens, it executed first const a equal to 10, then it executed b equal to 20, and then it added this, it performed this mathematical execution, assigned the value 30 to C, and then it executed C. But here you can see we are just getting 13 in output. But how we can see like this executed sequentially, means one line executed, then next, and then next. So for that, let's execute it in debug mode. Okay, I can create one HTML file. Okay, maybe index.html file, so we can see its execution in browser. Okay, I will write HTML, just the boilerplate code, and HTML5 colon 5, then press tab, it will auto populate. And here okay, let me make the title promise demo, and then in the script we just have to import that script src equal to promise demo.js. That's it, and we are done. Okay, welcome to promise demo. This is just a message I'm writing, which will display on the body. Okay, so simply what we can do, we just have to go in this file and we can run it into the browser. Okay, so I will copy the path of this file, open the browser. Okay, already I have opened it. Then in this, I will just hit the path and enter. Now we can see welcome to promise demo is, displaying the data from HTML. If we go to the inspect in here, if we see basically, we have promise demo.js. Let me put the breakpoint here, and now I will again execute. So now if you see, I have other files also. Let me close these files. Okay, and then again I will open here. So now if I press F10, so see, first this line executed. Once the value 10 is assigned to A, then it is going to execute the next line, and then it will go to the third line, fourth line, and finally the value of C became 30, and that is what basically is printing. Okay, so I will say continue. Now if we go to the console, here the value 30 is printed. Okay, so this is nothing but the sequential execution, line by line. One line will execute, one line will complete their execution, then it will go to next, next, and so on. This is nothing but the sequential execution or synchronous execution. Let's go and understand what is asynchronous execution. Now, in the Promise demo, assume we have certain things which is taking the time. Okay, so in explicitly or intentionally, I will call the set timeout method. Okay, and in here I want something to be printed after maybe 2 seconds. So you have to put here in milliseconds. 2 seconds means 2000 milliseconds. Okay, and then I will write here one function, and from that we will print the value. So console.log, and then I will say welcome. So like this. Okay, now I will save, and again let's go and try to understand how this time it gets executed. So if I run this, okay, so you can see first 10, then 20, then it came to this, and after printing the value of C, then once this line got printed, if you see the value of C is already printed here 30, then control came to print this line. Okay, I will explain how it happened. Okay, so now if we go, the value welcome is printed. Okay, same way we can, if we run here, the same value, first 30 is getting printed and then welcome is printed. This is called asynchronous execution. How? If we see, basically first this line executed, then const b is executed. Okay, and then it went to execute this, but it found, okay, this line, this function will be executing after 2 seconds. Set time out method or function, you can say, allows us to perform the to execute a particular function after a given time. Okay, so here we gave the 2 seconds, and that's why it is executing after 2 seconds. Okay, but processor or control understood, okay, it is going to take 2 seconds. So meanwhile, I will not wait here, and I will go and do the further processing, and once this time will complete, I will come back and I will print this. This is what basically happened. This is called asynchronous execution. Means these instructions didn't take much time, and that's why it executed first. Likewise, this also executed first, but when control came here, they recognized, okay, this is something which basically is execute will take 2 seconds, and then it will execute it, and that's why it gets printed later. So if it was a synchronous execution, in that case console.log, this welcome would print first, but this was not the scenario. So this is called asynchronous execution. If a particular instruction is taking time for the execution, in that case control will skip that and will go for the further execution. This is called asynchronous execution, and I have already told you, typically or generally we can say this process of asynchronous execution we achieve with Promise. So definitely we are going to pay attention on use of Promise in this video, but I showed you by giving one simple example that how asynchronous code gets executed. I hope we are clear with the first point, that what is synchronous execution and what is asynchronous execution. And then definitely we will also understand what is Promise. Just wait for some time and then we will come back here. So Promise is an object representing eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. Okay, so as I told you, now this promise is used to achieve the asynchronous execution. Okay, so what is promise now? Promise, like in our real life, whenever we make any promise to anybody, it means we are going to do that. Okay, now there will be two possibilities. Either we will be able to complete that promise, or we will fail. We will not be be able to complete that promise. So this is what basically happens in programming also. Okay, so but in JavaScript, promise is nothing but it is an object. Okay, and if you remember, object is nothing but, if you know any other programming language like C Sharp, Java, how we create the object using new operator. So same basically now JavaScript also support, and we can create the promise using new operator. Okay, representing eventual completion means once we are creating the promise, eventually either that will get completed or it will get failed. Okay, of an asynchronous operation, in the sense like if you have to make any database call or any HTTP call, there typically we go with the promise. Okay, and this is what basically the syntax of promise is. You simply create the promise and then catch finally. So let's understand what is this and how we can create our own promise. Mainly majority of the time we basically consume the promise object in JavaScript, but before that it is necessary that we understand how we can create the promise. Once we will have the understanding of creating the promise, then it becomes easy for us to consume the same promise. So first we will go and try to create the promise, we'll try to understand the promise, and then later we will see how we can consume. Okay, so for example, suppose I want to create one promise. Okay, so I will take its reference in one variable. Maybe I can say PR is the reference variable for promise, and then here in order to create the promise we simply write new promise. Okay, and as soon as we write this, we are done by creation of promise. Now in this promise, actually either it gets pass or it gets failed. Okay, so typically promise, if you go inside that, promise takes one function, okay, which will have the two arguments, you can say. Okay, so we will write here function. Okay, and inside that basically we will write the resolve and reject. You can write any name. Okay, so I will write resolve, reject, that's it. So now in this function, actually what happens, resolve will be representing that it was able to perform the task successfully, and reject means it couldn't perform. That's it. So now this is the promise object, and inside that whatever we will be returning, that will decide whether it got passed or failed. So for example, here we have the promise object. Now from there, suppose as I told you, like promise is typically used when we have to make the API call or any database call or anything. Okay, so here suppose some operations we are going to write which might be taking time. So obviously we will not make here any database call. Instead, just to show that it is taking some time, we can use the same function set timer. Okay, just to represent that some operations we are performing inside this which will be taking the time. Okay, so I will write here set timeout. Okay, and this is the function automatically came. I will say something which is going to take 2 seconds. 2 seconds you have to give in the milliseconds. So 1 second equal to 1000 millisecond. So likewise 2 second equal to 2000 millisecond. Okay, so here we are trying to say something will happen, some operation will perform, and which will perform after 2 seconds. Means this promise might be taking the time of 2 seconds. Okay, so in this we will just perform a simple console log only, nothing else. But intentionally this process should take time, that's why we are using set timeout, and we have given this one should be taking at least 2 seconds. So after 2 seconds this will print. Okay, and we can say this is promise object, like this. Now we have created the promise. Okay, and definitely you can write any logic within that. Currently I am writing just a simple logic. Okay, it is not mandatory that you should write the set timer. Okay, any simple logic we can write. So this is how basically we are done by creating the promise. Okay, now we have the promise created. In that case, how we can consume that? So if you remember this syntax, we have new promise and then we have used then catch finally. Okay, so what happens, actually now PR basically is representing to this promise. Okay, so simply we can say PR dot then, and then here we can write. So what is happening, whatever will be returned, okay, once it will be resolved, then will be executing, and once it gets rejected, then reject will be executing. So here I can write, here also I can write reject, and then like this, and then finally is like, if you remember the switch case of any programming language, there we have try, catch, finally, and finally is something which will be executing irrespective of whether then or reject executed or not. Likewise here also finally always will be executing, okay, whatever the logic you will write in the finally, it will execute that logic forever, okay. So let's not write this complex, I will write it individually, okay. So here I can write pr dot reset, sorry, catch. Okay, now try to understand what will happen. Then will only execute when promise will be resolved. Okay, means whatever the task it had to do, it was able to complete, then it will come to then. If some error occurs or something unexpected happened, in that case, it will not execute, okay, and it will execute, but it will go inside the catch. So catch represent if something error comes up, in that case, it will go to catch. This is not the complete syntax. This is something like, this is the PR object, and after 2 seconds it gets executed, okay. And then here if you want to write any logic inside this, that also we are allowed to write. Means then we'll be taking one lambda expression, you can say, or lambda function or any function it will accept as an input parameter, that will be executing. So for example, suppose I say this is one function I want to execute, okay. So if it was able to successfully complete their task, then it will come to then, this is what I have already told, and then whatever the function we will write, that will execute after that. So here I will say console.log. I'm not writing complex log, just writing this console log to show you the how promise actually works. So in console log I can write promise resolved successfully, okay. That's it. Now this time let's go and try to execute, okay. And then okay, so previous code executing, I will comment this code, okay, because this I showed you for whether it's synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous and asynchronous, I will comment this, and then we'll move. So this time let's execute it again. And now if you see what is printing, so it is printing 30. This 30 I believe is coming from previous. Okay, so here it is this time. So it is saying this is promise object, means this line got executed successfully, and if it got executed successfully, then I told you that this promise should be executing, and if it executed, then why it didn't print this message, right? It should also print this one, no, because this is written in the console log, but it is not printing. So what is the reason that it is not printing and it is only printing this? Then how we can say if like I told you, if it completes successfully, in that case it should execute the then, and you can see successfully it was completed, and so we are able to see that message. But after that we are not getting anything. However, as per my explanation, we should also get this one, but we don't have that message. What is the reason behind that? The reason is we haven't resolved or rejected. In the sense, guys, this promise is something which typically rely on either this one should be resolved or this one should be rejected. If you see, we have this function, okay, and inside that we have two input parameter, resolve, but we haven't used that, okay. So resolved represent the successful execution, reject represent the failure of something, okay. So inside that, if we write the resolve, okay, and like something like this, then now it got connected with then. So how it works, basically in the resolve, if we are calling like this, it represents that resolve is successfully done, and then processor will understand, okay, this is resolved, means now I have to go and execute the then function. So it will come to then, and then whatever the logic we have written, it will execute. So it is like a binding the then with this resolve. As long as we don't have this resolve, it means then will not execute. So once we write the resolve, now this promise, as soon as it will be done, this resolve represents that, okay, this promise has been successfully resolved and it should execute this then. Okay, so now if we run, then we will see, basically, since it was resolved, so now this is a promise object. Okay, and still if we see, it is not printing. Okay, so let me check. Basically pr dot then we have this function. Okay, and then okay, let me check this. Okay, let me try executing it once more, and then if we see, okay, so this time you can see we are getting, this is a promise object, which is nothing but, it means, set timeout will, will tell that we have to wait for 2 seconds, and then only this function will be executing. And when it executed, so this is a promise object got printed, and then we have resolved this. Resolve means it successfully resolved. Okay, it was successfully able to complete its job. So now this resolve had direct relation to then. Okay, and hence this function is getting executed, and then it says promise resolved successfully. Okay, likewise we have the resolve. If we comment this and we say reject, okay, let me write reject this time. And the reject has, the direct relation with catch. Okay, so now inside this catch we have to write again, it will accept one function and that will be executing. So this time it will say, okay, this promise is rejected, and then it will go to the catch. So here we will write again, it will accept one function, and then here, okay, and it will also accept the err. Okay, so currently we are not passing. We will see how we can handle with parameter also. Let's leave it as it is for now, and then let me print a message, console.log. I can write here promise was rejected. Okay, so this time, as I told you guys, if the promise gets resolved, then it has a relation with then. In that case, then will execute. If it gets rejected, then it has a relation with catch. So this time the catch will be executed. Let's run this, and then we will check the output. So here it will say this is okay. So what happened, basically err, unhandled rejection. Okay, so we can write inside this maybe arr. Okay, error we can write yes. Let's run this. Okay, so it says new unhandled promise rejection. This time we are getting some error. The error originated either by throwing inside of an async function without a catch block, okay, or by rejecting a promise which was not handled with catch. Okay, actually we are handling here. So pr.catch and then function. So what we can do, let's ignore this as of now. Okay, and we will go with the another syntax. We can write here the catch, and inside that we can write the same function, and then say console.log error occurred. Let's run this. And this time you can see basically something, so it went to then. Okay, but in that it couldn't find the association of cat. We will see this syntax later. Okay, so for now we have rejected, and I told you reject has a direct relation to this catch. Okay, and that's why it went to this catch and it executed. So if we are resolving, then only then block, not both block at a time will not execute. Okay, once if we write the resolve and reject together, since we have resolved, means promise emit only one value and not more than that. I will tell you what is the meaning of that. But suppose if we write resolve and reject together, does that mean कि for this resolve it will execute then and for this reject it will execute catch? No, it will just resolve. Either it can resolve or it can reject. Both is not possible at a time. Okay, so if we are writing the first like both at like this, in that case whatever we will write first, only that will be treated as the state of the promise. In that case it will go and execute the then. Okay, so this then will be executing and it will print promise resolved successfully. You see, it didn't execute, error occurred. Okay, however if we change its sequence, okay, if we go like that, this time we have written the reject logic for first, so it will be rejected and this logic will be executing. So if you see, we are getting our promise rejected and it says error occurred. Okay, so this is how basically we have the connection between resolve and reject. So resolve has the association with then, reject has association with catch. And then there is some input control, like if you want to pass the value then how we can, for example, suppose you resolve and then we want to pass. Let me comment this. Here we can give the value like promise this message is in promise, or let me return one object. Why this one? Okay, so I will return one object. I can say user. Okay, and then here I can write my name, maybe Indal, and then I can say anything like user, and then I will say ID, maybe one, like this. Okay, and then now as I told you, you already have understanding that this resolve has a direct relation to this then. Okay, so when we resolve, it means, guys, remember from the function you must have to write this syntax. Whatever you have written, that those will be executing, but at least, or at most, I told you, one value will be emitted. So either you write the resolve or you write the reject, then only that promise state will be in resolve or reject. What is promise state, I will tell you for sure, but resolve or reject you must be writing. Okay, so currently I am resolving. It means it was able to successfully do their job and this is the data it received. Just assume this was an API call and we had to fetch this data. So from here it was able to successfully complete. In that case the same data we are passing from resolve. Now we know this resolve has the connection with this then, so this then will be executing. Now I want to receive this data, so how we can receive? This is very simple. Then accepts a function. Okay, so whatever the value that we are passing for the resolve, same you can achieve, you can receive in this function. Okay, you just have to give the parameter and whatever the value you are passing from resolve, same you will be receiving here. So maybe let me write some response. Okay, like this I wrote. So whatever the input parameter you have given to this function, though that in that response basically the data will be received, that is being passed from resolve. Okay, and now if we want to print the value, we can say console.log, and then maybe I want to print the user, so I will simply say response.user, or let me print the entire response. Okay, and then if we run it again, this time we are expecting whatever the value we have passed, same we are receiving inside this, and this way you can access this one. You see, we are able to receive this. So if any data is being returned by the promise after it getting successfully resolved, that we can receive from the input parameter that we have to write inside the function that is being accepted by then. Likewise, if we want to reject, okay, so suppose this time I will not write resolve, I will write reject, and then we will pass some data. We can say suppose user not found. user not found in database. Like this, if I write, if I have to receive this data, how we can receive, I hope you are able to guess that how we can receive this. Reject has connection with catch. Okay, so it also accept with this function. Okay, and if any value is being passed as a value from reject, that you can receive, guess where, in the function. You just have to create one parameter here. Okay, maybe you can say here error or any variable you can name, and then we can print that error. So console.log, I will just print error. Okay, so whatever value is being passed from here, that will received in this error, and same error we are printing here. So this time, do you guess that then will be executing or catch? Obviously catch will be executing. The reason is we are not resolving, we are rejecting the promise. Okay, so we are saying, hey, promise got resolved and we end up with some error, so that's why we were not able to perform the task. That's why we are calling reject. Reject has connection with catch, it will execute the catch. We are passing some data, and this data we will be receiving in the input parameter of the function we are passing to catch. So we will receive inside this error, and then here we are printing the error. Okay, if we run, I hope you are able to guess the output, that what we will receive, that this error means we are printing that which is not but user not found. Okay, and then it will say error occurred. Okay, so let me go, let me remove this, then I will make this bigger. So this is the promise object. Then you see error occurred. Okay, so this error occurred, basically we wrote this one, but why this console log and then error is not printing? Okay, it should actually. So now if we go and check if we are making any mistake, so we have the catch, and inside that we have a function error, then we are printing the error, and then we are saying, let me try it once more and then check. So okay, we have to see why it is not. Okay, if you see, basically the mistake we have done is we haven't saved the file. We just have to press Control S. We have saved, and then if we run this time, instead of running that promise, it will go to the catch. Okay, and because we have rejected the promise, and that's why it came to the catch, and whatever the message we passed or data we passed, same it came to the error, and then it is printing user not found in the database. Just a dummy message I have written here. Okay, so this way basically it works. Likewise, just let me write the finally here only, and it also accepts one parameter. So you can say function, and then here print console.log finally block will always execute. Let me run it quickly, and then we will see. So guys, how finally works in switch case, same ways it will work here also. In then and catch, either one of them will be executing, not both. Okay, if then will execute means it was promised, was able to complete the task successfully. If catch executed means was not able to do, but finally always will execute. Okay, irrespective of whether then executed or catch. So one among them will be executing, and finally always. So if you see, we have user not found and this, so this is a error, means the error came, that's why this is printing from the catch, and then finally block is executing. If we make it promise, I mean resolve, then also you will see this time if resolve is executing, it means it then will execute, this block will execute, and along with that this finally will execute. Let's quickly see this, and you can see this time user is getting printed, and then finally block still is always will always execute like this. So will always execute has a spelling like this. Okay, so this way basically we can create promise. You saw like how we can create the promise, and how basically we can write resolve and reject, and we have the resolve connection with then, like if you are resolving, or if we have a promise object and something is getting resolved, in that case then will execute. If it got rejected, in that case catch will execute. Okay, so this is what basically the way that we can create the promise object. Let's get back here, and now you say promise is an object representing eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. Means either it will complete or it will fail. Means either resolve represent complete and reject represent the fail. So either it will complete or it will fail, okay, eventually. So this is what the basically it has the meaning. And this syntax, I hope now you saw, like we can create the promise. Inside that we can write one function, and from there either we can resolve it or we can reject it. If we resolve, then we'll execute, and then it takes the function. So whatever logic you will write, that will be executing. If it rejected, then catch will execute, and finally always will be executing. I hope till here we are clear now. Let's go to the next point. In promise object, resolve is connected with then and reject is connected with catch. I hope this is also clear to us now, and we have seen this practically. If we were able to resolve, then block was executing, and if we were able to reject, in that case catch was executing. Along with that, if whatever the data we are passing, this data we can receive in where? In the function that we are passing to, then in that input parameter basically we can receive that data, okay. So this way we have the connection. Means resolve has connection to then, and this data that we are passing to resolve has connection to the input parameter for the function which we will be passing to then, okay. So in this response we will receive the data that is being passed from resolve. That's it. Then next we have, and finally will always execute. That also we have seen practically. Whatever the value we will pass in the resolve result, same can be received in then and catch respectively. So if we are passing from here, then it is resolve, means this data you will be able to see in the input parameter of function that we have defined as a input parameter to then, okay. Guys, this is little bit confusing, okay. Don't worry, once or twice or thrice if you will watch this video, or if you read, definitely you will have better understanding. In first attempt you are not able to understand, don't worry, this is not that much complex. But yes, as a beginner you might feel little bit confusing, but once you will have you will watch it twice, you will have a better understanding. So I will suggest to watch this video twice in order to have a better understanding, okay. So this has the connection to this response, and likewise reject will represent catch, okay. So what data we will pass, that will be received in the input parameter for the function we are passing to catch, okay. So this point is also clear. Now a promise is in one of these state, okay. So so far we saw like a promise either will be resolved or a promise either will be rejected, okay. So resolve or reject. Here you see we have three state. The pending state represent initial state, neither fulfilled nor rejected. We have another one fulfilled, represent that the operation was completed successfully, and rejected represent that the operation was failed. I hope now you should be able to guess that fulfilled represent to what, rejected represent to what. Fulfilled means completed successfully, right? Whatever operation we wanted to perform, that was performed successfully. And if you are able to relate, I hope you understand, if we are calling resolve, it represents the fulfilled state. So promise will have now a state fulfilled, means the task that wanted to be done, that is fulfilled, that is completed, okay. Likewise you can guess rejected, means if we call the reject, it means our promise was was not able to perform, some error occurred, okay. What about this initial state, okay. So this pending state, in the sense that this time this is a position where neither it is fulfilled and not rejected, it is in the way of doing something, okay. So in order to show the state of this one, let me show you one thing, okay. We have this promise, okay. So I will say let's go here, and then we are printing this. Now what I will do, I will print this promise itself, console.log, and then we will print this promise object to show you the state. So here it is pr, okay, and then here also we will write console.log PR. Okay, and let me comment these lines meanwhile. Okay, then why are we writing it twice? Let me write it once. Okay, and this time, okay, let me clear my screen first. I will run the code and then see we have this promise in pending. Okay, so now this is the state of the promise object. Okay, in order to understand it properly, let me go to the browser. Okay, and there we will understand. So I will simply refresh, and then if you see this time, guys, see, this time we have resolved it. But remember, when it will get resolved? After 2 seconds. Means once the 2 seconds will be completed, then only resolve will call, and resolve will tell, okay, this promise is resolved successfully, so its state will change to fulfilled. But before that 2 seconds, its state will be in pending only. So I will simply say go here and then print. So if we go to console here, you can see we have the promise printed, and if you see this time promise is fulfilled, means 2 seconds completed. Okay, let me increase the time. I will say let's go for maybe 6 seconds, then run. So if I run this, I will say continue, and now if you see, the promise has a state pending. Okay, and this will have means until it completes the 6 second. Before that, means this function will execute after 6 seconds, but before that it will not execute. And I have already told you that as long as we are not writing resolve or reject, it means neither the promise is resolved nor it is rejected. So it will have their position, or I can say it will have their state in pending. Okay, so if you see here, we have promise in pending, and once 6 seconds completed, then it will resolve, means this will have executed. This time we have commented the code, that's why it not printed promise resolved. Okay, so if I comment this, then you can see that also. But hang on, so here if we print the PR, and now see, after 6 seconds the same promise object earlier was in pending, but once it complete their 6 seconds, then it got fulfilled. Okay, and then we have some value also, that value. So guys, in promise object we have two things. The first one will be promise state, and second one will be promise result. Okay, so promise state, until it completed the 6 second, it didn't execute resolve. And I told you this resolve and reject, these are the two parameters which is responsible to change the state of the promise. So until this resolve will execute, it will have their state in pending only. Once this 6 second will complete, then only this resolve will run, and resolve executed, it means it passed, so its state will change to fulfilled. Likewise, suppose I comment this and I uncomment this. In that case, can you guess what will be the state? Of course, the state of this promise will change to what the state we had rejected. So this time we will have rejected. Let's go, let me refresh. Okay, I will continue. If we go to this, so we have promise in pending. Okay, why? The reason is a 6 second is not completed. As soon as 6 second completed, you see the reject got executed, and now means their state will also have changed. How? If we print the PR again, this is PR is nothing but this promise object. As you see, this PR I'm talking about, means the reference of this promise object is inside this PR. So simply if we print this PR, you see the promise, hit enter, and then if I show you, the same promise object is in rejected state. Okay, and why rejected? Because we passed reject from here. Once we pass resolve, means that time it was fulfilled, but this time we are passing reject, and so the catch block executed, and then the state is showing it is in rejected state. Okay, and then promise result, this will have the value that we are passing. Okay, so if you see the value that we are passing here is user not found in database. Okay, definitely you can receive this value in error in the input parameter of a catch, that is in this error, and here also in the value also you can receive. Okay, so promise will have two properties mainly, promise state as well as promise result. And you saw while it didn't execute until 6 seconds completed. By that time it had the state in pending, but as soon as 6 seconds completed it executed, and since after execution we called the reject, that's why their state got rejected. If we called the resolve, then in that case their state will show resolve, fulfilled. Okay, and then if we are passing any data, that data it will tell. So in pending, if you see, it is undefined because that time it was not executed, and that's why our promise had no data because it was in process. Okay, but once 6 seconds completed, whatever the data we are passing, that data is coming into the promise result, and their state is also changed. So this is what basically the state of the promise is. It could be either pending, it could be either fulfilled, or it could be either rejected. So this is what the meaning we had, like these are the three states we have. Now promise can emit only single value, however observable can emit the multiple value. This is like, guys, both are, promise and observable, both are used to perform the asynchronous operation, and later you will find which one we should go for. So in order to understand this, there is a basic difference between promise and observable, and that you have to understand. And what are that? Promise can emit only single value, but observable can emit multiple value. Here simple meaning is, let me tell you, let me comment this reject, and I will tell resolve. Okay, and this time I will not write any object. Here I will say this is my first, this is okay, statement 1 2 3. I can write statement 1 2 3, and multiple you can write. Just I want to tell, it will emit only one, either resolve or reject. Okay, so here if you see, we have either resolved or rejected. This time we have wrote multiple resolve, but as I told you, I have already shown you, right, that if we wrote resolve and reject together, whatever the first it wrote out of resolve and reject, that only was considered as the state of the promise. This time we are emitting multiple values. Okay, like in resolve we are saying statement 1 2 3. I have also told you, whatever the data we will pass from here in resolve, then we will get in the response, and then same response we are printing. So let's check whether we are getting only first statement or we are getting statement 1 2 and then 3. So all values we are printing, and then simply run from here only. Okay, we will have the promise state in pending until 6 seconds completed. Okay, and once the 6 seconds will completed, you can see this is the promise object which we are printing from here. Okay, that is fine. I told you it will emit only one value. So now see, we wrote 3 resolve. Out of that, as soon as it saw the first resolve, it ignored basically the remaining resolve. Okay, and only first resolve executed corresponding to this resolve, then executed whatever the data we passed, that was received in the response, and that response is printed. Means it is saying statement 1, but statement 2 and statement 3 is not printed anywhere because promise emit only one value. Okay, with the help of resolve or reject, either resolve will execute or reject. Or how many resolve or how many reject? Only one. Okay, likewise if you write the several reject, the reject that you write on top, that only will be executing. Okay, and also either resolve or reject, only one value will be emitted, not both also. So here if I write resolve and then here I write reject, okay, so I can say error 1, then we can say error 2. Still don't get confused that it will print. Okay, here 1 and 2. Okay, so error Oh, spelling correct. Wrong. Okay. So now this time we are emitting several values. But what will happen? Out of resolve and reject. As soon as control will see the resolve or reject, the first value will be emitted and the rest all will be ignored. This is what the meaning of this line is, that either it will emit or how much value it will emit, only single value will be emitted. So let's run it again and you will see still a statement 1 only will be printed after 6 seconds. Let me make it now to 2 seconds only, and then this time let me put this reject on top. So it will choose from top and then can you guess the output this time? What will happen? It will reject this. It will consider this reject. So out of resolve and resolve, processor will find this reject on top. It will ignore all this and this time it will be rejected. So if we print this, it will be in pending. After 2 seconds you see error 1 is coming, only one value, rest all are getting ignored. So likewise, if we go and if we see in the observable, so let me create one observable here and then you will see. And also I told you guys, this promise is in native to the javascript, that's why we didn't import anything. But observable is coming from rxjs operator, so definitely you have to install that rxjs library first. So let me install that. Npm install rxjs. Okay, this is the library you have to install in order to use the observable. Okay, once it gets installed, then we have to import and then we are good. So here let me create observable. I can say obs represent observable. Okay, and then here we can say new observable. That's it. Now in order to use this we also have to import. Okay, so let me write the import statement on top. Simply we can say import. What we need to import? We need to import observable, and this is available where? Can you guess? In rxjs. Okay, now if we run, actually this import, this is just a normal javascript file, so syntax like this are not, this is not allowed to write inside this. So we have to make our file now like module. Okay, so in order to convert it into the module, we just have to change the extension. This js represents javascript, we will rename it to mjs. Okay, m represent module, so now it will be mjs. Okay, this is like a module, and in module basically we can use. So now if I say go to definition, yeah, so this is the observable basically is coming from. Okay, and this is available in where? This is coming from the rxjs. Okay, so let me go and let me use this. We have defined a observable, and this will also take one function. So maybe we can say function, and then we can say response or any input parameter, any name you can take. And then from here basically we can tell, okay, so if you have to emit any value, like if we had to emit the values from the promise, we were using either reject or resolve. Likewise, if you have to emit any value from the observable, we use the next method. Okay, so response dot next. Okay, and then we can write any value, like I will say observable value 1, we can say 2, 3, 4. Likewise, just to say, like we are emitting the multiple values. Okay, and now in final, when we created the promise, after creating the promise, we were consuming this, right? And how were we consuming? We were consuming with the help of then, catch, or finally, right? Likewise, if we have the observable created, we can consume this with subscribe. Okay, so we can write obs object then subscribe, and then you can write this also accepts one function. Okay, and then in here basically we can write the response. So whatever the data we are passing from here will come into the response res, I can say. Okay, and then I can say console dot log, and then I will write here res. Okay, and before that I will also write here console dot log observing the multiple observable value. Let's run. So guys, if we did the same, even though we were emitting the multiple values from the promise, we were able to receive only one value, either resolve or reject. Let's check with the observable. If we see in our document, we have written observable can emit multiple value. It means this time, even though whatever the value that we are emitting, everything should be printed. Okay, let's run and check whether our expectation is right or not. So it says module not found. Okay, let me go and let me check. Okay, so the obvious error that we have is if we see guys in here, it is now the name of the file we have changed. So it is no longer JS, it is basically MJS, right? So we will write here MJS and hit enter. And now if you observe guys, see, since this is the asynchronous call, right? So earlier it was taking the 2 seconds of time, that's why it came in the next observable. And if you see, it executed this line first, observing, because it was not taking much time, so it printed observing the multiple observable value. But before that, promise was in pending state because it was waiting that 2 seconds will complete, then only I will go for the further execution. Meanwhile, observable started emitting the value, and you can see we are getting the several values emitted from the observable. All values are getting, as long as values are emitted, all values are emitting, and we are able to respond, not all at a time. So first this executed, okay, so we received in the response, it printed. Then next line execute, again this emitted, and this value received inside this, it printed this one. Then this executed, printed this. Likewise, so as long as it will emitting the value, inside this response, it will subscribe, will keep executing. Okay, so now I hope basically you will end up with using promise as well as observable. And if the scenario, typically I have seen most people get confused that when they should go for promise and when they should go for observable. So whenever you have a scenario where you will continuously getting the values from the backend or from somewhere else, in that case we should go for observable. However, in promise you get all data at once. Okay, so either you will get the data from resolve or reject, but you will not get several data emitted from promise, only one. So if you are sure that only one values will be emitted and that value only you want, in that case promise is fine. Otherwise, if you feel like after few minutes or few times, sometimes if you are getting that continuously the data will keep emitting, in that case you should go for the observable. Okay, I hope it is clear, like what is the meaning of observable can emit multiple value and promise can emit the single value. Okay, and this is the syntax, the same that we have discussed right now. Let's go for another one. The promise objects are immutable. We can't change or modify the object we receive as promise object. Okay, so guys, if you see, let me comment this. I just wanted to show you, so it is not required now, and we will get back. The main focus we have in this video is to learn promise. The observable was just a minor thing that I thought that we should have some understanding about observable also, and that's why I explained this. Okay, so now it says ki whatever the object we have, that is basically immutable. Immutable means the object which cannot be changed, which cannot be modified. Okay, so let me go and I can show you better in a browser this time. So I will switch to here. I will refresh, file not found. Okay, so in my HTML basically I gave the JS extension, but later I renamed to MJS. That's why it is not. Let me make it now back. I will not use it as a module. Okay, I will rename again, and I will keep it simple JS. And even it will give you the error because it will tell you we can't import in the simple JS file. So now if we go and if we refresh, let me remove the breakpoint from here, and we are simply printing the promise. Now if you see guys, in this promise object we have two properties, that is the promise state and promise result. I told you it is immutable. Immutable means something which we cannot change. Okay, So if we write, you can see promise state is covered with two square bracket. This itself is a visual indication that we cannot modify or we cannot have direct access to these variables. Okay, so this can never be changed. If we try to change, we have the PR. So PR dot, and then if we want to access like promise, you see I'm not getting any value. Promise state, so nothing. Promise state equal to, let me make something like I will try to make it fulfilled. Okay, let me hit enter and let's check whether I am able to change it or not. So if you see promise is still in rejected. Okay, I tried, PR is the reference. So if still I print the PR, you can say still the state of our PR is in rejected only. I was not able to access this property, and I was not able to modify. Okay, so this is what basically is representing that the promise object we we receive is immutable. We can only read it. Okay, and this double square bracket represents that we cannot directly access this property, and this is something which cannot modify. Okay, so we access promise state, if you see, and still we tried assigning something but it didn't assign. Okay, and when we printed the PR again, it was in as it is state what we were in here. Okay, rejected state. So this is what it tells, like promise is immutable. We cannot change the properties, we cannot change the object. Okay, even we cannot access their properties directly. We have another like now we have a better understanding about the promise so far. So we have one function in javascript fetch. Let's go and make use of that, and it basically returns one promise object. Now you know that if a promise object is returning, it will be either in pending state, fulfilled state, or rejected state. So as long as it either resolve or reject, it will be in pending, and then if any one either resolve or reject call, then its state will change to either rejected or fulfilled respectively. If it gets rejected, then it will have rejected. If it gets resolved, then it will have a state fulfilled. Okay, so let's use of this, how we can use. So I will actually make one function here. Let me comment the other part now, because we are already have some better understanding. So we'll focus only on fetch. So let me make one function, and then I can say get data like this, and then I can say fetch, and then it will just take the URL. So I have some sample URL. Okay, let me comment, let me copy, and let me paste. So what it will do, it will basically, and we will receive inside this. So I can say where users. Okay, so I will say users equal to this. So it will fetch the data and it will return us one promise object. Okay, now you understand that how we can consume the promise object, right? So we can say users dot then, and then we can write if the values comes. So here we can say a function, we can say response, or any value, any name you can use, and from here we can say console.log response. Okay, this one will be printing, and then we can call the get data. Let's check what happens here. If we run again, I will make it JS only. So you can see now we are able to retrieve the data. If I access the same link, here only, or let me duplicate this, I will paste, and these are the data. Okay, same data actually we are getting in our console also. Okay, this is a huge data basically we are getting. So headers like this, values we are getting. Now if we see inside this, so we have in some other format. Okay, so if we want, basically what we can do, we can convert it into the JSON. So how we can convert, let me do this. We can simply say where or okay, so for I will show this. As of now, this is how basically we can make use of fetch. Just give the URL and then what value it will return the promise object. Now, promise if something happens wrong, in that case it will reject. So let me make some a spelling mistake or something. Then we should get some error because this time it will not successfully resolve. It will be rejected. So I hope this time we should get the error and we should have the value rejected. So some error should occur, but you see, type I remove this, and now we are getting the error, right? So we can handle this in catch like this. Then we can say function, and then we can simply write console.log some error occurred. Okay, so instead of printing such message, we if something wrong happened, then it will go to the catch. If it is able to successfully fetch the data, it will go to then. So let me run this time again, and instead of showing that error, it will simple print this message, something error occurred, you see. And I will make it again this one, then this time it will print the data. So this is how basically we can make, you see, we are getting the body and all, everything we are getting. So this is how basically we can use the page. Now it says we can use multiple then on promise object. Okay, how? So this is what is something that I told you I will explain in some time. Now guys, see the data we have in here is a proper in readable format. We can read ID, name, etc. But here if you see, we are not getting in that format. It is something like difficult. We are getting difficulty in reading this. So what we can do, we have to convert it into the JSON. And how that we can do? So instead of printing that console, what we can say, hey, whatever the response we are getting, let's return after converting it into the JSON. Okay, so simply we can say response.json, and what it will do, that will be converted into the JSON. Now we are returning the, let me remove this catch, otherwise you will get confused. So we have then, okay, now we are calling this users, okay, which is nothing but a promise object, and then calling. So if we are able to successfully call, in that case this then will execute, and then we are returning. Now the obvious question is, if we are returning the value from this then where it will be accepted? Now it will be accepted or received in another then. You can have the chain of then. Okay, so we can write this then, okay, and then function again we can write we can say some data maybe, okay, any name you can use. And this time if we print console.log data. Okay, so what is happening? First of all guys, remember, you can say, okay, so here also this is executing asynchronously. No, this is not executing asynchronously. First this then will execute successfully, then only this then will execute. Okay, so response will receive inside this then this response will be converted into JSON. Once it gets converted into JSON successfully, then the same data will be returned to another then, and that data after receiving we are printing. So let's go and check, and we can see whether this time we are getting in JSON format or not. So now if you see, we have some value, response.json. So actually there is no change as it is, the code is. If we run it again, so we can see the data now we have is in readable format. That time we didn't save, and that's why we were not getting the value. So make sure guys, whenever you are making any change, you are saving the file, okay, otherwise it will show you the previous one. So response.json, it will get converted, and now you see ID, name, username, every values we are getting. So that we are printing from here. So first then will complete, then only it will go to another then, and likewise. So you can write another then also, okay, and so whatever the value you want, likewise. So this is how basically we can create the chain of then. Okay, Let's go, and then we can say we can use normal or arrow function in then function. Okay, so far you saw like we have been using the normal function. Okay, if you want to use the arrow function, that also we can do, and I hope you already know. So simply what we can do, we can convert this into the normal arrow function like this. Data, okay, is the input parameter, and then from here you can say console.log, and then we can say data. Okay, that's it, and we are done. Likewise you can convert here also. So in it's a function or arrow function, any function you can pass, still it will work. If we clear the screen and if we run the same command, still we will be getting the same output. Okay, so normal or arrow function, anyone, whatever you prefer, you can use that. Then we can also handle the promise object with try catch instead of using then and catch. Okay, so that also we can do. We have been, whenever, as long as we had the promise object, we were handling it with then or catch. But do you remember, same thing we can do using try catch also. How? So here we can simply remove this, and guys, we know that we can achieve using async and await. Okay, so suppose we are getting here the users as a promise object. Now what we have to do, simply we have to write it into the try catch. Okay, and inside that we have to write this, and then if any error occurred, we can simply print console.log error. Okay, then remember, this is this is a promise. Means, what is the promise object? If you go to the first definition, promise object is nothing but it tells the promise. Here promise is an object representing eventual completion or failure of an asynchronous operation. Means here a promise will return, this fetch will return one promise object which tells that okay, once I will be able to collect all the data, then I will give you some response. Okay, not immediately. So give me some time. I will either complete my promise or I will reject my promise. So immediately you won't get value. So what we have to do, what is the behavior of JavaScript? It executes sequentially. If you don't go, simply it will execute this and it will return undefined, because it needs some time to fetch the data from this URL. Okay, but by that time it will have executed, it will have nothing in that. So here we have to tell await, means we want to wait here until we are successfully able to fetch the value. Then we are getting error. It says await expressions are only allowed within async function and at the top level of modules. Okay, simply is telling, now if you are trying to make use of await, in that case you must be writing async in the function. So your function should be async. Okay, and then we are done. Now control will come, it will wait here, okay, until it fetch the data, and then if we want to print, simply we can print here. So we can we can convert it into the data. So we can convert it like var, and then we can say data equal to users dot, let's convert it into the JSON. Okay, and remember guys, this is also a something which will take time. Okay, so here also we have to wait. Okay, we have to tell okay, wait until this operation completed successfully. So first our control will wait here until data is fetched from this URL, then some value will populate inside this. Okay, then at next line again we are thinking, hey, we know that we are making use of promise, but we want to wait here also. Okay, so guys, this await was similar like then. Okay, when we were telling then, means we were telling don't execute it immediately. Once this PR gets resolved or rejected, then only execute then. In this here we are using the await, means saying okay, wait until we get the value, because promise doesn't resolve immediately. Like even our real life also, we simply say hey, I promise that I will give you this, but I will give you when? In future, not immediately, right? Likewise this fetch will give you promise and it will take I will give you after some time, not immediately. That's why we are writing here await. Likewise we are it is saying okay, I will convert it into the JSON, but I need some time, and that's what it will tell promise. Okay, I promise I will convert it, but I need some time. So here by putting await, we are telling JavaScript that wait here until this line gets completed and then only print the value. So console.log, if we go, you can see the data, and now if we run, still we will have the same value. Okay, so in order to run, you see we are getting the same value. So guys, not necessary that you always handle with then and catch only, but this is also a way. So then is replaced by await, means await is telling you okay, you can wait, and catch means if any error occurs, obviously these lines will not execute, it will go to the catch block and it will be executing. So we can also handle the promise object using async and await keyword. This is what basically it was telling. Here we had, so we can also handle promise object with try catch instead of using then and catch. So try catch we used, and additionally we also need to make use of async and await. Okay, so I hope now you have better understanding about promise. So that's it for today. Thank you.